بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Hadith number 140 deals with what the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in the prayer of Fajr on Friday. And the Prophet said ﷺ in the authentic hadith that the best prayer among the mandatory prayers is the prayer of Fajr prayer on Friday. Unfortunately, the majority of Muslims skip this prayer because it's a weekend, they're lazy, especially in countries where people stay up late up till 2 or 3 a.m. either attending a wedding or just playing with their friends, and they go to bed late. They will not be able to wake up for Fajr, and they often miss this great opportunity of doing something that Allah Azza wa Jal loves a lot. Hadith Abu Hurairah will be recited by the brother. Second one, yes.
Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in the Salatul Fajr of Friday, Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, that is Surah Sajdah, and Hal Ata Al Insan, that is Surah Dahr, Bukhari.
These two surahs, the Prophet ﷺ used to always maintain reciting them in Salatul Fajr and Fajr prayer on the Friday. This was not once or twice, every single Friday, which emphasizes that Imam should also follow this sunnah. Why? Because these two great surahs include a lot of advice, reminders, speaking about the origin of the creation of the man, and also promoting doing good deeds and description of Jannah and description of hellfire as well. So Muslims, Imams especially, should always maintain to recite these two surahs every single Fajr of Friday. And with the grace of Allah, there are a number of masjids worldwide apply this, especially in the Haramain. In Mecca and Medina, they always recite these two surahs. And as you know that Alif Lam Mim As-Sajdah has a prostration of recitation. And those who do not know the sunnah, they think that it is part of the Fajr on a Friday that you recite any surah that has sajdah. So you find Imams reciting in the first rak'ah, for example, Surah Al-Alaq, Iqra' bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, which has at the very end sajdah. Some of them recite parts of Surah An-Najm. Others do even more than that. They recite the portion where it has the sajdah in Surah Al-Sajdah, only 3 verses before and 2 ayahs after, and that's it. Thinking that what is needed is to pray something that includes the sajdah, and this is wrong. Either you pray the full 2 surahs in the 2 rak'ahs, or pray anything else. But don't try to camouflage it or to cut and paste what you like. You have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And this brings us to an issue that we did not discuss before because it was not in our chapter, but I just remembered it. What is the ruling on reciting, or that is, what is the ruling on prostrating for the recitation? Is it a must or a sunnah? The most authentic opinion is that it is a sunnah. Meaning that if the Imam recites the surah with sajdah, he has the right not to offer it. If I'm reciting the Quran and I pass by an ayah with sajdah, I have the right not to offer it. But if I offer it, those listening to me, it's recommended for them to offer it as well. So scholars say, if there are two, one of them is reciting the Quran and the other one is listening. If the one who's listening When the person reciting the Quran prostrates, it's recommended that he prostrates. But if he wasn't listening, if the man is reciting the Quran loudly and the other one is on the phone or is talking, not listening, not paying attention, then it is not recommended for him to prostrate. And among the rules that need to be also explained, that how many or what are the types of prostrations that we may offer outside of the prayer that are not related to prayer. There are two types of prostration. Prostration of recitation, sajdatul tilawa, and prostration of shukr, thankfulness. Okay? Sahu is related to the prayer. It's connected with the prayer. We don't include this. Now these are the only two prostrations allowed in Islam outside prayer. And therefore we learn and we know that if I concluded my prayer with the Imam, I see some ignorant people offering sujood. One. And they prolong it after finishing the salah. And when he raises his head, what are you doing, brother? He said, I was doing sujood al-shukr. I am always grateful to Allah for doing things to me. So I thank Allah Azza wa Jal by this. I say that this is an innovation. You do this after every salah? He said, yes. Haram, not permissible. They are not prayers. Why? Because prayer is inaugurated and it begins with takbir and it ends and concludes with salam, taslim. And these two prostrations don't have this. They have the takbir when you prostrate, Allahu Akbar, and when you raise your head you don't offer takbir. That's it. Only one takbir when I prostrate, and there is no salam. That is why we do not need the conditions of prayers when offering these two prostrations. What do you mean, Sheikh? I mean, you don't have to be in the state of wudu. Can I prostrate without being in the state of wudu? Yes, you can. You don't have to be in the state of covering your awrah. Come on. I can prostrate while wearing my shorts? Yes, you can. You don't have to face the qibla. No, this is too much. With all due respect, Sheikh, I don't want to hear more. This is not from my pocket. This is what the scholars say. And this is what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, as well as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen. A number of scholars. These two prostrations are not salah. They're not prayer. That is why I can do them whenever I want. A woman does not need to have her hijab or khimar when she prostrates for recitation. If she's in her home, if she's wearing normal clothes and she recites it and she wants to prostrate, prostrate. The qibla is to this direction, I can do it in this direction. No problem in that. And I thought that it might add a little bit value to you to know, because I know that some of you may not know these rulings, and I prefer that you hear it from me rather than hearing it from someone else. So this leads us to know that the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in Al-Fajr of Friday these two great surahs all the time. And what did the Prophet ﷺ recite in the Friday prayer itself? This was not mentioned here in our book Umdatul Ahkaam. The Prophet used to recite two sets, one of two. Either he recites Surah Al-A'la and Surah Al-Ghashiyah. Surah Al-A'la, Sabbih Isma Rabbika Al-A'la, and in the second rak'ah, Hal Ataka Hadithul Ghashiyah. And the second set, he used to recite Surah Al-Jumu'ah, يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. And in the second rak'ah, he would recite Surah Al-Munafiqun. إذا جاءك المنافقون قالوا نشهد إنك لرسول الله. So this was his sunnah. Nowadays, a lot of the people only pray, only سبح اسم ربك الأعلى هل أتاك حديث الغاشية. And unfortunately, I've been to some masjid where they do not read these two at all. This is the sunnah. But if you recite anything else, your prayer is valid and acceptable. And as if you remember, we said in the beginning, the longer your prayer is and the shorter your khutbah is, a sign, an indication that you are knowledgeable. We have a short break, so stay tuned and inshallah we'll be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back. With this we conclude talking about the verdicts and the rulings over Friday prayer. And we start and begin to talk about the rulings on Eid prayers. But I believe that we should begin a new session because it's a new topic. Therefore, I would like to see if you have any questions that we would, inshallah, try to answer them. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam.
Suppose if I'm trying to memorize a particular surah from the glorious Quran by listening to it time and again on my mobile. I'm traveling in a train or a bus. And if at all I come across a ayah of prostration, then how do I do that? Because in the bus and a train it's not possible. So on reaching home, is it mandatory to perform the prostration of recitation?
Okay, we've stated before that the ruling on the prostration of recitation is not mandatory. It is mustahab. It is recommended. Therefore, if you're listening to it on your mobile or in the radio while driving or while on the train or a bus, you are not obliged to do it. If there's enough space for you to do it, you can do it if you wish, but it's not mandatory. And that is why Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, once on a Jumu'ah, he recited a verse that included prostration of recitation. He went down from the pulpit and he offered the sujood and everybody offered sujood with him. The second Jum'ah, he recited the same verse or another verse that had the prostration of recitation and he did not prostrate. And when he saw that the people were a little bit either confused or annoyed, he said, "Oh people, I deliberately did this, just this, so that I would teach you that it is not mandatory. It is something that is recommended. You do it, alhamdulillah. You don't do it, you have no problem in that regard."
I have been to masjid where in the first rakat, when the imam says Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la, everyone they say Subhan rabbil a'la aloud, and after Suratul Ghashiyah they say Allahumma hasibni hisaban yasira. Is it permissible?
This is all part of the innovations. This is part of the things that are fabricated in Islam. For example, it is similar to talk shows. When you have a host and a guest, this is what the people are doing now. When the muaddin makes al-iqamah, he says, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةُ قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةُ, and the people say, أَقَامَهَا اللَّهُ وَأَدَامَهَا. When the imam says istawu, they say istawayna. I'tadilu, they say i'tadalna. Seriously, this is what's happening in Arabia. They're answering back. So the imam says Allahu Akbar, they say Azza wa Jal. And they offer takbir. When he says Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, they say Ista'anna billah. What is this? This is not a conversation. You are innovating and you're doing things that are baseless and has no relation to Islam or to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That is why when the Imam says Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la, everybody says Subhana rabbiyal a'la. And when Allah Azza wa Jal says Inna ilayna iyabahum thumma inna alayna hisabahum, he says Allahumma hasibna hisaban yasira. All of this is nonsense. It is not related to the Sunnah. If there is a hadith that supports this and the hadith is authentic, not fabricated, then yes, you have an excuse to say. But if it's not, then it comes under the category of innovation. Yes, brother.
Sheikh, in India, there's a tradition. I don't know of its authenticity, but people here pray 2 rakat of shukr as a prayer. How far is it authentic?
When do they do this?
When something blessed happened to them, like some good news, a good job, or if a child passes exam, they pray 2 rakat shukr.
Well, to my knowledge, there isn't anything as 2 rak'ah of shukr. There is sajdat ash-shukr. There are 2 rak'ahs of tawbah, of seeking Allah's forgiveness and repentance. But to my knowledge, I do not know of these 2 rak'ahs of gratitude. However, any voluntary prayer you offer, it's considered to be out of gratitude to Allah. So, not necessarily when something happens, whatever you pray, it is a form of gratitude. Therefore, I believe that if you pray 2 rak'ahs, 4 rak'ahs, 10 rak'ahs, voluntary prayer, general prayer, as a sign of gratitude to Allah, this is inshallah permissible. But is it part of the sunnah? Not to my knowledge yet. The concept is there. Be grateful, offer prayer, inshallah this is sufficient. Yes, Faisal.
Sir, as you said for the before question that it's all innovation to reply to the imam or whatever he's saying. But I don't know about the authenticity, but there is a hadith that whenever the Prophet used to read something about Jannah or something about good, he used to ask for it. And whenever he read about hell, he used to ask refuge from it. So should we do what the Prophet only did at that place, or can we do it wherever we find it?
First of all, this is something related to a specific issue, and that is, whenever the Prophet ﷺ passed by a verse that talks about mercy, he would ask Allah for his mercy. And whenever he passed by a verse that spoke about punishment, he would seek refuge in Allah. This is an authentic hadith. It's different than whatever comes else, such as when saying Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, or as in the last surah of At-Teen, Alaysa Allahu bi Ahkam al-Hakimin. People say Bala wa ana ala dhalika min ash-shahidin. And also people say yes or no. These are things, some of them are backed by weak hadith. So weak hadith to some scholars is acceptable because it is in fada'il al-a'mal, in something that is not related to halal or haram. They say it's okay to do it. I believe that it is not. As long as it's not authentic, you should not do it. But regarding the issue you're saying, scholars say yes, if you are reciting the Quran and you pass by such a verse, you ask Allah for his blessing and favor, and you seek refuge in him. Is it permissible for people listening to the recitation of the Imam? Scholars say no, it is not, unless the Imam himself while reading says Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik, and you hear that, you can say. But if the Imam is saying whatever he's saying, asking Allah Azza wa Jal or praising Allah in the Quran, he's not saying it, he's reciting Quran, you are not allowed to say or speak or talk or supplicate unless he does this. And this is the most authentic opinion of scholars, so that you would listen wholeheartedly to the Quran.
Shaykh, this is regarding the prostration for in Sajda Tilawah, the Quran. Is there any difference or any dua that is to be recited while in prostration which is different from the other prostrations?
Some scholars say that there is a particular dua for the prostration of recitation, and they say sajada wajhi lilladhi shaqqa sam'ahu wa basarahu bihawlihi wa quwwatihi fatabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqin. اللهم لك سجدت وبك آمنت ولك أسلمت اللهم احطط عني بها وزرا واكتب لي بها أجرا وارفعني بها قدرا. And all of these don't seem to be authentic in the recitation of prostration. They are general supplications that you say in your recitation, and that is why scholars say you say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la is sufficient. But if you like these supplications which are authentic and beautiful to be included, there is nothing wrong in that, inshaAllah.
Sheikh, usually many times it happens when a person dies, the family members and friends get together and they recite Quran 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. But they hardly do the prostration of tilawat. I have not seen anybody doing it, and it is not done. So first of all, is this sort of getting together for recitation of Quran for the after the person dies, is it recommended? And when they don't do the prostration, what is the ruling?
First of all, it is not permissible to gather and make dua for a deceased person, or to recite the Quran on behalf of a deceased person. All of this is considered to be innovation. Not only that, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, as in the hadith of Jarir ibn Abdullah, he says that we used to consider gathering and making food on behalf of the deceased form of niyaha, which is a major sin, form of wailing. So even to gather in one house and people come and they drink coffee and tea and give their condolences at a specific time, this is not permissible. You want to give your condolences, you see someone, you tell him, may Allah reward you for your loss, in the masjid, on the street, in the market, but not to go and gather in one place. And even worse, to make food and invite people to come and eat. This is all part of the bid'ah. Reciting the Quran, there is no evidence that it would reach the deceased. And it is a bid'ah when you have 30 people coming to give their condolences and they give each one juzu. So each one reads it in about 10 minutes, and by this they have all finished the Quran, and they're requested to give the reward to the deceased, as if, mashallah, they're making a bank transfer or an ATM. So put your number, PIN number, okay, I'll transfer this much and much to the deceased. We have no evidence behind that. The only authentic evidence we have is that you can first supplicate to the deceased. Any dua or asking Allah for forgiveness reaches him. 2, charity reaches him. Authentic hadith states that whatever charity you give on behalf of the deceased reaches him. 3, performing Hajj, and scholars say Umrah is as well. So if you perform Hajj on behalf of a deceased, this will reach him. And finally, fasting from his relatives. If he died unable to fast or has missed fasting, such as oaths or pledges or expiations, it is permissible for them to fast on his behalf. Other than that, praying, no. Reciting Quran, no. Doing forms of worship other than that, all of this is considered to be part of innovative things. And I'm afraid that this is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.